The Sacramento Regional Solid Waste Authority Board meeting dated October 11, 2018. I'm going to call this meeting to order and ask the clerk if you would please call the roll and state the public statement.
Good afternoon, Directors Ashby, Carr,
Here.
Frost,
Here.
Kennedy, Natoli,
Here.
Cerna, and Gitta.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum. This meeting of the Solid Waste Authority is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast Consolidated Communications and the AT&T U-verse cable systems. The meeting is closed caption and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will replace Sunday, October 14th at 4 p.m. and Monday, October 15th at 3 p.m. on Channel 14. Members of the audience wishing to address the board may sign up at the back of the kiosk on the speaker form and bring it to the clerk. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, if you'd please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, next item, please.
Your next item is your general manager's report.
Hello. Sorry.
Good afternoon. We're happy to have you back, Doug.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Glad to be back. And I appreciate everybody being here. General Manager report today. We have the Big Belly Litter Can project on Broadway. We actually, I believe the PBIDs bought the cans. So the SWA did not buy the cans, but we are providing the service for them. And there's a picture of one of the cans that's out. The Cash for Trash program has been announced to all the PBIDs. We've been through that process with them, and we're just waiting to connect with them on the ones that are interested in the program. And then, as per the board direction at the last board meeting, you requested that we have a summit on illegal dumping. That summit was held October 4th. There are some of the organizations that were invited to the meeting and participated. And Chris Leon, when he provides the illegal dumping report, will include the report from that summit in with his other report. So you will get the information for what happened at the summit. And finally, I just want to mention, we have in the past been trying to schedule a board agenda item for the mission and vision and values, and I've been postponing that a little bit. One, because I knew the board had a lot of focus on illegal dumping, but the other critical piece to that puzzle is how SB 1383, which is the organics recycling mandate that's coming down, that draft language has not been released by Cal Recycle, and that will require us, SWA, to make some changes in programs, perhaps inspections, perhaps a lot of other things. And so I really wanted that language to be out there so we could incorporate that into the discussion about the mission and vision, especially when it comes to expenditures going forward in the future. So we don't have a date and when that's going to be released. And so I'm targeting that discussion to happen at our March meeting. Typically, our March meeting is a pretty light meeting anyway. And so I thought that would be a good time we should have that out of Cal Recycle by then. And so we can provide you an update then. And that's my general manager's report.
Thank you. I missed that, the summit. I was at a conference, so I'll look forward to, is there a written summary or minutes to the meeting, or are we going to have a report back, or?
Yes.
We have both some notes, and actually Etienne has prepared a report for next meeting.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could, Madam Chair, just
Yes,
comment on, you
Mr.
called it
Natoli.
very quickly, and I know it was a little tough on scheduling to get there. I was going to try to have my assistant who wasn't able to make it either, but at any rate, I didn't see any notes. I wasn't even sure it happened. I had seen the announcement of it, and so I think, again, next meeting's fine, but you're going to build into item 3, which that was kind of how we got on that topic the last time. So I trust in whatever verbal report, because it's not in the written report, you're going to give us some
That's correct.
ways that we can, I guess, at least understand from your verbal presentation as to how this ties in.
Chris will give you some information and be able to answer your questions from the meeting.
Yeah, because the whole idea was it would inform our discussions about certainly the budgetary piece of it, but also then the, what's being suggested. And you actually had a recommendation here to take certain actions, but maybe or maybe not, that is predicated on what came out of the summit.
Well, I see the summit as the first in more than one meeting that needs
Okay.
to happen on the subject. I don't think one summit is going to answer the issues. And as we've discussed in the past, there are a lot of components to the illegal dumping, and so I see this as an ongoing part of what the SWA is going to be involved with.
Could I ask you on that, though? So, again, you moved swiftly, which was good in that regard. Were you pleased with the turnout? And do you think from the standpoint of certainly Doug and, SWA staff, but obviously representing County Waste and Recycling in part, do you think that the turnout was reflective of all the folks that needed to be at the table? Did you think you needed to have law enforcement, community prosecutors? I guess I'm just curious about,
Yeah, and I'd rather let Chris answer that, but I can tell you that given the short notice, I know there were some logistical issues, and we just didn't get as many parties there as I would have liked. Because again, I think there are a lot of different organizations that do things, and as we get together and find out what organization is partnering with another one, I think that network expands. That's why I'm relatively confident that we need to have more meetings on the subject to really try and put together the whole picture of illegal dumping and who's doing what.
Well, and I just would say that maybe it's covered under the Office of the County Executive, but I see that city parks had representatives there, but county parks did not. And we talked about that the last meeting, about a tremendous amount of illegal dumping and other activities going on in the parkways, not just in American River Parkway, but certainly Dry Creek Parkway and some of the other areas. And if they weren't represented, then unless they had somebody there in proxy, I think it's just important because of the amount of time and effort and dollars that are being expended in trying to deal with the issue in that part of the county world. So, all right, I guess I'll wait till we get to item 3, Madam Chair, and ask more questions. Thanks.
Director Guerra.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the urgency in pulling the meeting together and at least getting the staff aware that this is an important factor. And I know a number of our city departments and some folks from my staff attended. Supervisor Cerna and I were both away during that week on another critical meeting. But I do hope that from at least the report back that I got was that we start getting more into the linkages of how the different agencies start working together, and rather than just piecemealing responses. So I hope that comes about it. And I know one of the solutions that we see, and we'll probably talk about it more in item 3, is the coordination of a greater central administration to oversee and manage these programs. And so I think that as we move forward to the next summit, I think with better notice, I know I would like to participate. I'm sure Supervisor Natoli and others on this board would want to participate. Not that I want another meeting. Don't get me wrong, I'm not looking for more meetings. But this is a critical one, and I think that the key thing here is how are we going to be working together as different agencies to tackle something that I don't think we've figured out quite yet.
Thank you. I'd also like to welcome Director Cerna, make a note that he has arrived.
Yes, ma'am.
And if there's no further questions about that report, we'll move to consent items. Does anyone have any comments or questions, or do we have a motion on consent?
Move the action summary.
Second.
Okay, moved by Director Natoli, second by Director Guerra. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I guess we're using the voting,
Sorry.
the computer. Thank you.
Mr. Carr.
Director Carr.
They want you to punch in.
So it was my fault.
I like the.
I started it the old-fashioned way and finished it the high-tech way. That's progress.
So it's unanimous vote with
Okay.
those present.
Motion carries. Thank you. Unanimously. And next item, please.
Your next item is your illegal dumping analysis results and recommendations.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. My name's Chris Leon. I sort of was the lead with a lot of other regional agencies, city staff, as well as our consultant who finished the final recommendations report. So the first thing is to receive and file the recommendations and the findings report. The recommendations were circulated late July. You've probably been able to sort of peruse them, as well as there was executive summaries of both reports included in the staff report that went out. I just want to highlight a few of the findings. We sort of had those discussed in April or May when we first finished phase one of the project. That there obviously has been a significant increase, particularly like in the city of Sacramento of illegally dumped reported of 42%, but both jurisdictions actually have an increased utilization of their neighborhood cleanups or bulky item and junk and trash collection programs that they can schedule an appointment. For example, the city has 2 electric and appliance collections as well as 2 bulky and trash collections, and then there's one in the county with additional collections for $25. So I'd like to, the first slide talks about the illegal dumping recommendations. We got together with a working group of people who are providing information from the funding. This included a few regional agencies, city staff, as well as the county staff. And we had about 20 of them placed in front of us. And we looked at what was the feasibility as well as the acceptability of some of the recommendations. And those you did not see on the report. And they also are made up of the last page of the executive summary for the recommendations page. You see a table where there's not applicable, for example, of about some recommendations are specific to a county or the city only, as well as there's an estimate on what the first implementation cost would be. So the first 2 are primarily for the county. They suggested doing a 2-week collection standard for bulky item collection. Some of the county operational staff have actually initiated a Saturday collection temporarily to sort of ask people if they're interested in another day. So they've actually scheduled Saturday appointments, and I think they typically have about 40 or 50 of those on a Saturday currently. And they've actually acquired additional equipment that's due to come online anywhere from the next 3 to 12 or 15 months. Increasing the number of collections was recommendation number 2 to 2 additional collections. Currently it's 1. You will see that a lot of these programs aren't fully utilized. They tend to be about 23% in the city as well as about 15% in the county. It was the sort of customer base, so 15 to 23% actually call up, get an appointment, and utilize.
Excuse me, Chris. Director Natoli has a question.
Yeah, well, just on that point, again, you've offered some explanation as to what lies ahead, and we had this discussion, certainly Doug and staff were before us when we had our budget considerations a few weeks ago at the Board of Supervisors for the county, and we know we're buying the equipment, and then obviously they'll come back with a plan to hire up once the equipment is received. There's a long lag time. I think 3 months is a bit optimistic. I think you told us, it's going to be spring probably before we see the equipment and get positions filled. But I guess what I want to draw attention to here, and it's just, I think is exemplary of the challenge, is that you bring forward a recommendation, one that says you go to a two-week collection standard. Okay, that's great. We're already at 4, and we cut off. We don't even make any appointments. And so when I look at the data on page 16 of the report, talked about just in 2017 in the county's CUB system that they took 44,800 and something calls related to requests for bulky collection services. Now there might be some redundancy because people have to call back if they don't get admitted, and yet only 27,900, about 28,000 scheduled appointments. And so somewhere along the line, 16,000 either fell off, hauled their own, dumped it somewhere else. I doubt that was too many of those cases, and or just gave up and called back another time. And so what I see here is that on these recommendations is that the practical reality of achieving 1 to 2 week pickup, when we're having difficulty meeting 4 weeks or more, we're going to try to address that through more equipment, more crews, and then to increase the number of bulk collections to 2 times. And so not only have you tried to shorten the pickup time, where we're not getting there anytime soon, and then you're going to multiple that by saying that people can actually have 2 times, assuming that they get into whatever that new queue is going to be. I think we're setting up a situation here that, we can talk about what we want to do and how it might address the issue. But in reality, we're not going to get there anytime soon. And I don't want to be, mislead anybody who's watching this meeting, or certainly be under any false impressions that we're going to do, because basically you're going at it from both ends, and the gap's getting this much wider. And to bring that back, you're going to have to put a lot more staff on, and you're going to have more equipment. And maybe Doug, you or Tim or somebody, or you, Chris, can talk to it. But it seems to me it's great to put recommendations on paper, but in practical reality, how are we going to get? Maybe we get to 2 weeks by getting enough crews on there and getting some of the queue. But if you're going to encourage more participation, that's the third leg of the stool. Then you want more people to call in and use the service. So you're encouraging more use. Yeah, that's a good thing. If you had 100% usage, we'd be swamped. And then you're going to go to more frequent collection, or cut down the time from the time they call in to schedule. And then you want to go 2 times a year, and then you wouldn't have 100% of your customers. So has anybody kind of thought that through? And maybe Doug, you got your hand up. I guess it just, as I pondered that and read the report here earlier and heard your presentation, it seemed to me that, we're setting ourselves up for a long haul and some disappointment.
Well, I'd like to reassure you that hopefully we're not in the big picture for disappointment. When this consultant went through and did their report and recognized that there was a lag time and there was more requests for service than we actually had available appointments, the county department went through and started and Chris alluded to this in his presentation, but we added Saturday appointments.
Right.
And so how we've kept down and made sure that we stayed within the 30-day limit in terms of trying to get people scheduled for 30 days, we've done that by working Saturdays, and we work crews north and south. And so we're picking up north and south 50-some accounts on a Saturday. We'll do the same thing with the north crew. So, and that's how we've been able to maintain staying at the 30-day limit.
But that's assuming you can get into 30 days, because I know I dealt with the issue, just a specific one where the guy was told we're scheduled 30 days out, so you got to call back. He couldn't even get into the queue. Now you address the situation, but so until you get down below 30 days, depending upon when people called in, they may call multiple times before they get added, right?
Well, they might, but when they're calling in, they're talking to one of the Cubs representatives, and so Cubs has been working very well with this in terms of actually recognizing that dates are full. One of the Cubs supervisors will call the operations superintendent. That's where we open up either more appointments. We plan on working more overtime during the week, the overtime on the weekend to clear the appointments. As that need moves up, we are responding in the department. There is a maximum in terms of how much overtime we can work, which is why we've asked and we received permission in September to increase the amount of equipment. And so as there is a long lead time with a boom truck, I think is 14 months from the time we ordered it. And so we will be we're working all the equipment we have, even the spare equipment, and we're not planning to retire anything anytime soon, and to help us keep up with that demand.
Yeah, and Doug, don't misunderstand. This is not about not working hard or trying to conquer the problem. And so when I said disappointment, it wasn't so much that because you guys weren't working hard or didn't get to it, you were going to be disappointed. It's just that if I look at these things combined as either goals and or anticipated actions that either we may be asked to act upon and or in our respective realms of city and county, I think we need to go into it with our eyes wide open, because the practicalities of it seem to be, we're compounding the challenge. I guess I would just say too that this is not a service that we somehow absorb for free. It's built into the rate structure. It was built into the rate structure 25 years ago when we first did it, and then we were just doing neighborhood cleanup, and we sent a notice out, and everybody put stuff at the curbside, and we showed up sometime during rotation during the year, and we picked up a whole lot of stuff. and some of the stuff, is ended up at the roadside for weeks until we got it collected. But, and I don't know whether that makes any sense, because the utilization is such that we thought going by appointment, this would be easier, more predictable, you could schedule and so forth, versus kind of the blanket approach by, sector by sector, that, again, people could choose to participate or not, and depending upon if you got the December pickup versus the July pickup, maybe it was more seasonal or not. But if the utilization is as low as we're showing here, when you only have a fifth of the people that are actually using the service or less, or a sixth of the folks of all of our customers, and not everybody might be eligible because of the, there's different properties and so forth, but of the residential customers, that's a pretty low utilization in that, and yet we see on another scale this illegal dumping, and there's got to be some correlation to that. So I guess all I want to say, and I didn't mean to take so much time here, Madam Chair, it's just that as I look at these recommendations and have for our consideration what we're going to do and better coordination and all that, I think some of the realities of even working hard and trying to cut the backlog and working 6 days a week and so forth, if we actually get attain what we want to do here, and that is to get greater participation and cut down the illegal dumping aspects and cut into that, then we're going to have to paddle a whole lot faster on the other side of this thing, and that's going to require resources to do that. So at any rate, that's my comments right now. Thanks.
And that's just, you touched on a point there. The same crew that's doing the appointment-based is doing the illegal dumping. And so part of the problem that stretched us on the appointment-based has been the amount of illegal dumping that's going up, and which has created demand.
Another component.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, we dreamed big with the recommendations, and there's more to come. So to follow that up, Director Natoli sort of followed up with an awareness campaign. You don't want to get points 1 and 2 in place without, if you promote something, then you don't have the capacity to fulfill that. Okay. So that's sort of tied in with doing an educational outreach campaign with the city of Sacramento, which we currently have at least allocated $50,000 to promote. The services are available to residents, as well as the 311 reporting system of material that's actually dumped on the street. The other ones are relatively straightforward. Because the city actually already has one. They have a free dump coupon. They use the waste management transfer station, which is down in South Sacramento. And there's been an interest expressed to use the county's north area transfer station. So that would actually be an arrangement between the city and county for that use of the dump coupon would be available. We're encouraging when for example, when a county resident can't get one of their bulky item collection events, or it's 2 or 3 weeks out and they want to take care of it, offering them a free dump coupon at the landfill or the North Area Transfer Station, acceptable to both, as well as then extending that to the multi-family dump coupon, where these could be accessed online. We all have access to computer databases in terms of at least customer base for residential customers. And those therefore could look up the account when they come to a facility, or just provide a piece of paper when I've done different variations of these programs, and these could probably be implemented in a short term of anywhere to probably 3 to 5 months, because you just have to get the agreement between the parties and then the SWA could be would reimburse the county and other facilities that would accept the coupon from multifamily residents. And then we would have to arrange some type of interchange of reimbursement, either on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis, for city and county residential customers that utilize the dump coupons at a
Excuse me, Chris, Director Guerra.
If we've already had a relationship in the south area where a coupon could be used at a county transfer facility, why haven't we been honoring the coupon or using the coupons?
I stand correct. It is called Waste Management Inc., the private company,
okay.
The ones with the green and yellow trucks.
Yeah.
They operate the South Transfer Station, CERTS, I think it is, or SATS. Okay.
But right now, because there isn't an agreement between the county and the city, we haven't been able to use the coupon in the north area.
Correct. And so I'm looking at it would be as simple as an agreement from the County Board of Supervisors willing to accept the coupons, and then we would establish a contractual or agreement language.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that sadly, one of the areas with a lot of trash is down on the south area where I represent, but the other large area that has a lot of illegal dumping is not that far from that north area transfer facility, and at least in District 2 of the city of the city. So I would hope we can figure that out, and I do like the idea of having the SWA being able to have something that can be used at both city and county in areas that are bordering the county and city limits to try to address those issues. But that answered my question, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions when I move on to the next set of recommendations?
Director Carr?
Yeah, I don't want to let that point just drop. So who would be responsible for bringing that recommendation to the County Board of Supervisors? Is that you? Or is that a supervisor?
Well, an example would be the lead organization would be the city would have to request upon the county. That's why they're listed as the support organization. Come up with, to address the Board of Supervisors, that the city has an interest in establishing a contractual arrangement so they could redeem their dump coupons at a county facility, which would be NARS, North Area Transfer Station, or even Kiefer Landfill, because there's 2 county facilities.
City request to the county is the answer.
Yes, and then vice versa, the county would do their own, and then we could always do them in tandem too, because the SWA is interested in doing one for multifamily customers, so they would have to be able to utilize a facility to take their material too.
Some type of reciprocity agreement, okay.
Well, and so why wouldn't we want to find something that's generic, whether, you know, you live in a multifamily unit or a single-family household that can be transferable between the city and county to be able to use that coupon? I mean, is that I guess if the SWA in one end is going to create a multifamily coupon, and then there's going to be a city coupon, and then there's going to be a county coupon, how can we make it easier so that we're not coupon clipping, you know?
That's good.
Yeah, instead of reinventing the wheel, we should do with what the city's currently done and say, where can we take that forward? You know, is it printed the same, and then we put just 3 entities, SWA, the county, and city logo on it, and they're acceptable at these locations.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Well, Doug, I'd like to, well, we'll move on with this, but I'd like to follow up with how we figure out some kind of simplified coupon arrangement to make it easy as possible for people to be able to use these coupons.
But to be clear, we don't have a coupon arrangement right now.
No,
You know,
that's correct.
We accept yours at one location, but we don't.
Yeah, only city currently has a coupon used at one Waste Management Inc.'s facility.
Yeah.
I'm holding this, right? Next slide, please, if anybody can hear me.
Doesn't want to go.
There you go, got it.
Okay, there we go. Thanks. These are the community drop-offs. One of them would be tied in with university and colleges, primarily during the semester breaks, is sometimes the city of San Jose example is partnered with the downtown as well as San Jose State to take care of material being taken to a central location, either donated, particularly at the semester move-ins and move-outs. At that location was one of those. And the city and county could partner with on those types of things, since example is the county's code enforcement department currently provides about 3 or 4 of these through various neighborhoods. They tend to go from supervisory district from year to year. And then the neighborhood events. One thing is that example I already gave was the code enforcement does a few in the county. The city's planning on doing one in March upcoming, so they're in the planning process to do one in March. So they've started taking the torch and started to run with some of these things. And
Excuse me, Chris.
Yes.
Director Cerna has a question.
Thank you. So relative to the findings specific to the behavior of student bodies at the end of terms and the propensity for that to, in itself, be an event that can sometimes cause quite a bit of material to gather curbside. Is there any precedent for partnerships between code enforcement and, say, fraternities and sororities on campuses, so you have the volunteer person power that comes from the student body itself, and then you have the collection containers that hopefully would continue to be provided by the generosity of some of our hauling community, and then perhaps just the orchestration management of the entire event done by a limited number of our code enforcement personnel, so that you kind of have investment from 3 different parties. Is there any history of that working on other campuses, outside of Sacramento County or outside of California?
We gave the example of San Jose State. UC Berkeley has a very well orchestrated event, as well as Sac State. When I've had correspondence with them, they take care of a lot of the campus housing, but anything that's located and that's not owned or operated by the university is not necessarily under the radar screen. So this would probably be partnering with them and saying, how are we can also gonna take care of the people who are living in private or public housing?
But as we know, I mean, if you take Sac State, that maybe is not the best example because it's such it's known as a commuter university. It serves 13 counties, but there is a significant number of student body that do live fairly close by, although off campus, and similar to the way that the events occur in our neighborhoods, where you have private parties that are hauling at some distance the material that they would otherwise take to a transfer station or take to a landfill. If you had the right messaging and, again, the right preparation, the tickets or whatever we're using to make sure people understand the rules of participating in an event ahead of time, why couldn't we make that happen?
So good time, I think, to remind the board that you approved, in addition to the county code enforcement group, earlier this year, and that was specific to adding a code enforcement officer to work with the multifamily homes. And one of the scenarios that we talked about was around Sac State, where you have a lot of apartment complexes. I've had several conversations with board member Guerra about the trash that's left out there either on a monthly basis, and so they are going to target that, and adding in some of the fraternity to what the code enforcement's doing, I think is very doable.
And obviously, there's plenty of space to stage it at a central location, like, say, I don't know, a university.
Yep.
Okay.
I think the recommendation of trying to get the students engaged on, because we're going to obviously work with the property owners and through their conditions, but I think getting the people, just the sheer bodies that you have involved at the campus, I think, to Director Cerna's point, that's, I think, one piece that we have to tap into. Because they're going to go out and rent somewhere else after they graduate Sac State. We don't want them to continue the same problem.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Okay, and then for one of the other recommendations after neighborhood events is free bulky item services to multifamily properties. That we haven't this is high level, we haven't really looked into the weeds, but you might be curious about how would this be accomplished. Currently, it's provided if somebody wants to schedule things, most of the time it's done through the property owner or the manager. A tenant is moving out, they will establish some collection service from maybe 1-800-GOT-JUNK or one of the private franchisees for the commercial sector, and then it's a fee for service.
Excuse me, Director Carr.
Yeah, could you tell me a little bit about this Proposition 218 restriction? What is that? What is the restriction?
I might defer to legal counsel, but a lot of Prop 218, if there are fees put onto property tax, there's a noticing requirement when you're changing those significantly. Therefore, the noticing has to typically be sent to each property owner or residential location. And so you were specifically talking Prop 18 to one of these programs specifically?
Specifically in regards to picking up bulk items.
Okay. At least for the residential single family that are collected by the city and county, for those customers,
I'm referring to the third bullet under root cause. Multifamily properties, buildings of 5 units or above cannot access the services due to Proposition 218 restrictions.
Yeah. The 218 restrictions are the monies collected from single-family homes or anything less than 4 units. You cannot use that money to provide other services outside of your rate base. So if we wanted to go out and do potable water, but we were collecting a fee just for solid waste.
Understand.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes.
just to try and clarify that a little bit, in this case...
Could you talk into the microphone?
Sorry. In this case, the multifamily homes are serviced by the franchise haulers, and so one of the nuances of this recommendation is we would need to work with the franchise haulers because they are collecting revenue from that, and if we give away free service, we would want to connect with the franchise haulers on how that's either a reimbursement or how that mechanism works. But because it's hauler to a business, it's not covered under the Prop 218.
Okay.
And probably to segue into that would be if this was a requirement by the private haulers, it could be contractual, it could be put through an ordinance. On the other side was this Los Angeles Sanitary District actually provides the service to multifamily customers and collects, and basically the fee is collected through the water bill. So that's what they do is they put a minimal charge on the water bill, and then the private entity, which is the sanitary district, and I'm kind of expanding upon that, the city and county currently provide these services to multifamily customers. You could either generate additional revenue or use some of the franchise fee revenue, and the SWA would be reimbursing the private haulers, or sorry, the city and county for providing the service to multifamily customers. Therefore, it's a fee that's collected outside of the 218 base, so therefore that would not apply. And so the funding source for multifamily to get a bulky item collection program from either a city or county collection crew would be then reimbursed by franchise fees that are currently collected by the SWA. That is one way of doing it, or also having the private sector have a fee for service and they just bill the customer.
Okay, thank you.
Are
Director,
you done? Oh, sorry.
Are you done, Director Carr? Yes. Director Guerra?
Are you going to move on to 4 right now? Or
Yes.
Before we move on to 4, I guess the question that I would have is, if we have multifamily properties that aren't providing the adequate space, I mean, what I have a little bit of a conflicting, a view of giving them free bulky space if they're responsible to provide the adequate amount of capacity. I mean, how did this recommendation of making it or providing paying for their responsibility come about?
In terms of just providing the service to multifamily customers?
Yeah, the limited free bulky for multifamily properties.
It was put out there because it was one of the recommendations from the entire study, as well as it's being done in other jurisdictions. How it's funded, it's free, either through using franchise fee to reimburse the company who's collecting the material, or it then becomes the other option would be it'd be a fee for service, so you just have the customer directly pay the private hauler for taking the material away. We thought if it was free, it would be sort of tandeming currently, like there are free bulky item collections for residential customers. A lot of it was to make it very universal. So I get 1 or 2 collections per year and they're free, or they're included in the rate base, and you're using the franchise fee or some other type of taxing fee structure to pay for those. And they're utilized by people who take advantage of them, and there will obviously be some people who will never utilize the service because they do not have a need.
Yes, Director Natoli.
So we do have some non-fee, non-rate revenue, at least on the county side of it, right? For leases and for different things. I mean, again, as you look at lifeline rates and some of the questions about multifamily.
Well, if you're asking the department if they have excess, that.
Not excess, I'm just saying you have that source. I'm not saying it's excess. That's not the question.
Well, so that source of revenue was used to help fund the Parks Initiative 2 years ago.
Okay.
So from a department standpoint, there is still money out there.
Yeah.
But the money that was not tied to Prop 218 was used to fund the $1.2 million in the Parks Initiative.
That was what accumulated, but there's a return, or was that anticipated dollars going forward? You had money in
That was the anticipated going forward, and that calculation was done before the recycling markets
Okay,
flipped.
right. Okay, that's probably another discussion, another day at the board. Okay, thanks.
I thought the parks, the money that was allocated to parks was a one-time, and we would just year by year decide if we were going to allocate it again.
Well,
It did.
in terms of what the Board of Supervisors would allocate, that's up to the board. In terms of our budget that we submitted, the department submitted to the board, it did include the $1.2 million this year.
So we did it last year and we did it again this year, but we didn't promise ongoing.
No.
Is
but
that correct?
It's my expectation that we would be continuing to fund that at that level
Okay.
until I'm told otherwise,
Unless we get a windfall.
unless we get a windfall.
Okay. Thank you.
And then the last overall one was citizen engagement and education, creating a pride of place. This has been done in other jurisdictions in terms of, like, the example was in the staff report, it says Sacramento clean. You sort of have a overall theme of, neighborhood beautification, taking pride in the place where you live, and then that sort of is underforming all of the other recommendations as we sort of came through these things. Like there's a promise zone in Sacramento, and the promise zone has certain obligations or missions to achieve, and sort of tying in through that, utilizing neighborhood groups, as well as Keep California Beautiful as one other organization that does things like this through other jurisdictions.
Director Guerra,
Yeah.
I think came first, then Director Anatoli.
No, I do think having something, a more coordinated Pride of Place campaign. One thing I would bring up on that is, I know particularly in parts of my district, heavy Vietnamese and Spanish language residents in the areas where there are high amounts of illegal dumping, I think, are a consideration. And I hate to say, some of the information that we put out for a lot of our public works information is always in English. And when we're trying to ensure that communities that are trying to access some of these resources, I think they always miss the mark that we do everything in English, and then later we find out we're not getting utilization, and much of it has to do with language access. So I think, if we're going to be talking about pride of place, that we start thinking about, what are also the communication standpoints. And I know that's been a challenge for some of the longtime neighborhood associations in that area that, want to connect with communities that have different languages, and there isn't any available information. So I would just hope that we would look at that piece of ensuring that we're being sensitive to that. The other thing that on the whole pride of place thing too is, I think on the enforcement, how folks can participate in that enforcement. Because I talked to a lot of homeowners who see a lot of illegal dumping off of Elder Creek, and they don't know how to best engage on the enforcement side. And so I noticed on some of these issues, like looking at the enforcement burden, to one of the recommendations was to look at where the source of the trash was coming versus just the dumper itself. I think making sure that we're looking at those pieces as well, and I didn't see that in this conversation, but I'd I want to hear more about that as we move forward in this conversation.
Okay.
Director Natoli.
And just that last point, because I think it, in my view, as I talk to folks about just troublesome types of behaviors and activities in neighborhoods and communities, that this whole issue of enforcement and enforceability and accountability, because, I mean, relatively speaking, there's, you know, unless you're dumping toxic waste into the river, nothing's going to happen. You know, relatively speaking, you know, and the enforcement, you can chase people all day long. And we've got areas in district I represent that, you know, Doug and his crews are called out multiple times. And sometimes we even have identifying and we try to track it down. And, you know, not that people aren't making that effort. And, you know, I saw the conversation here about, you know, greater penalties or let it be known and so forth. We still have remnants of signs that are out in the rural portions of the county. When we were going to do $1,000, we were going to pay folks that could help us identify. We did. We had a program for a while, several years ago in the unincorporated area where we were paying rewards for dumping incidents. And, you know, that came and went. Some of the signs are still there. But, again, I think this kind of breakdown in this societal values that, you know, somehow it's okay, and even if it's not sanctioned, that it's just, you know, you're going to get away with it. And unless we get an attitude that, one, yeah, we take pride in where we live and in our communities, and that, you know, we care about it, and that's a great message, and I think that, you know, that could certainly carry the day from the standpoint of messaging. But when I see the amounts of illegal dumping, and I'll kind of take us back to something that certainly we're all very familiar with, what we're trying to overcome in the American River Parkway. And, you know, that's a different population. It's not single-family residential by any means, but, you know, when I look at the tonnage, you know, we had those discussions yesterday at the sanitation district meeting, just as we were recognizing some of the efforts. To me, it's astounding, the amount of certainly consumptive goods that are disposed of, you know, illegally, and what we're trying to do to curb that. And in all honesty, as I drive around, you know, some of the, you know, places in the county and some in the city, you know, it's looking more second world to me all the time as it relates to the appearance of what you see in litter and items, and whether it's television sets or mattresses or just generally litter or dumping on vacant lots. And yet when I see the tonnage, you know, I would hate to think about what it would look like if we haven't taken some of these initiatives. And so I have that, you know, as a backdrop. But again, this is going to be a community-wide effort, and certainly the leadership that, you know, through the elected leadership in the city and county can have some impact on that. But there's got to be a desire to want to do more and to do better. But secondly, that you just can't do this and get away with it. But I don't know that there's any answer on that end of it. So what I see is that, you know, we're going to continue to put crews on. We're going to put money. The SWA is going to talk about this. We're going to do things that will help us clear more trash and clean up areas. But I guess I'm not feeling hopeless. But I also see that all I see is a growing problem, that unless the consequences are there, one, and that the mentality is there, and the acceptance that, you know, you don't do this to your own backyard, your own front yard. But secondly, that if you do, that, you know, there's a good chance you're going to get cited, or that you're going to have some consequence. And thirdly, that even having options, because we have some options available to folks, and they're being taken advantage of in very low numbers, percentage-wise. And so what this says to me is that, you know, we've dug fairly deep, and this is good work, and I, you know, compliment the efforts that we're putting forth here. And you know, it's not a reason to not to do more or to do something more, but you know, I don't have a very high level of confidence that we're, you know, outside of picking up more tons of trash and maybe getting to some of the litter that's associated with you know, not just, you know, large piles of debris, that we're going to conquer this anytime soon. You know, you can give free coupons till you're blue in the face, but if people don't take advantage of them, or if they take advantage in a way that they're using them to, you know, run a business or something, what good is it? You know, and I get it that what we're doing is keeping some of that problem away. So, again, I don't want to be pessimistic here, but you know, I can see us, you know, coming back around 3 or 4 or 5 years from now. We'll say, yeah, we had extra results, and we picked up, you know, a jillion tons of stuff, and we got, 15 crews working, and we got, 4 collection days a year, it will help, cut into the problem, but I'm not confident unless you really get a change in attitude and some change in the consequences that we're gonna overcome this anytime soon. I don't know, Doug, I don't get your hand up, so.
I just was going to, 2 clarifications. One, the program for the $1,000 reward is still ongoing.
Is it?
We don't get,
We need to replace them.
Calls,
Well,
but-
most of the signs are down. I know, I can tell you,
Okay.
there's 2 remnant signs I'm aware of way out in the South County that, locations where they're frequented, but maybe the signs went up. Was there ever replacement signs in those locations? That wasn't your department.
to be honest with you,
Transportation commented to me that they do have some available, and if they get a request that one has fallen off or needs to be replaced, they were more than happy to.
Well, maybe what we ought to do is go back through and see where we put them initially, if anybody had those records, because they were pretty visible when they went into it, certainly in the unincorporated, rural areas and some of the neighborhoods, that were right adjacent to suburban areas. I think you'd be hard pressed to find many of those signs. I bet you the inventory would show that, you've got maybe a scant percentage of what you have out there. Because that wasn't, again, another message to folks to call it in, that if you saw somebody doing the wrong thing, that you could help us, and then the message gets out there that you're actually enforcing this to some degree.
there is one on El Centro. I pass by it on a
where?
regular basis. The other point I was going to make was code enforcement did announce at the South Yard meeting Tuesday morning, 2 citations were upheld. One of them was for a repeat offender. And so that's one where we kind of need to go back with the district attorney because he is a repeat offender to see what we can do about. But ultimately, putting him in jail will only last for a period of time, and then he's out again. But they are still trying to work and cite people.
It's difficult. It's like fireworks. It's hard to catch them in the act.
But that's why your board did approve in the spring some additional cameras for both the city and the county. And I think code enforcement for both the city and county believe that that will be a good tool going forward because that identifies the person, the vehicle, the license number.
Director Cerna.
Thank you. So, as my colleague, Director Antoli has just articulated, I too remain very frustrated by the lack of teeth that we have, so to speak, in terms of enforcement. And I just, I appreciate the report, I appreciate the findings and the recommendations, but how creative are we getting, though, or should we be, do you think, Doug, that to look kind of outside of the normal limitations of how we normally think of enforcement, whether it be fines or, cameras? Is there anything that comes out of this report that leads us to believe, for instance, that maybe we need a legislative fix? Maybe we have to go across the street, to the Capitol with our legislative delegation to think through giving cities and counties more authority to expand enforcement options. For example, I'm willing to bet that if you the report points out, in fact, that most of the dumping, I guess, is coming from single-family properties. I'm willing to bet that if we were to say to single-family property owners, whether they're occupying the property themselves or renting out, that they, like in many instances in the city of Sacramento, are responsible for the condition of the property all the way through the parking lane, okay? That regardless of who might come in the dead of night and dump something in front of that property, or whether it's they themselves, but if you change the onus to be, you're responsible for the upkeep of that property all the way through the parking lane to a travel lane, I bet the mindset and the behavior begins to change real quick in terms of, especially in the areas that we know to be chronic offending areas, that they're going to invest themselves in making sure that they're not going to be held accountable and susceptible to fines and other, kind of typical enforcement measures. Are we, for instance, looking at how to lien properties with greater ease when necessary, and kind of streamlining that process for chronic offenders? I just think that we need to think completely differently about how we enforce this, because right now, to Director Antoli's point, what we're doing isn't changing behavior, right? It's still way too easy to commit the act of illegal dumping in the first place, and then even if you are caught, what really is going to keep you from doing your own cost-benefit analysis in the end about whether to do it again, because you're always gauging that against perhaps the inconvenience of going to a transfer station or a landfill yourself and disposing of materials the right way versus the risk you're willing to take to continue with the illegal behavior. So I just think we need to take these recommendations, which this is good work, but I think we kind of have to grab another gear here and really focus on making it extremely painful, uncomfortable, to be especially a chronic offender when it comes to illegal dumping in this county and in the city.
Thank you, Director Guerra.
Yeah, to follow on the Supervisor Cerna's point about the value of this report. First, I do want to thank my colleagues for, I know we got into a little bit of debate whether we should fund this report and move forward on it, but I think it raised a lot of questions about, how are we going to address this challenge? And I do feel that it's only the first step in future summits and whatnot that we're going to figure out how do we have our multiple agencies, but to also, fix the issue of enforcement, because I think at first we were when we were looking at this report, we were like, there's trash out there, we should use every dollar just to go pick up the trash. But I think this taking a step back and figuring out, okay, how can we really address the challenge? Because Supervisor Natoli's point is correct. Like, we could be cleaning up trash here for 10 years, and if we don't actually do some institutional fixes or look at different ideas, we're going to be still here having this question 10 years from now, picking up the trash. So I think this has been a great conversation from this report, and I know there is a huge demand from our constituents to spend every dollar we can to go pick up the trash, but we have to make sure that we figure out how to make a dent in the illegal side of it. On the coordination part, when we look at cameras, I want to ensure that we're working with both our city and county, and I can't remember if this was answered for me already, but that when we purchase cameras that they're connecting, that they're actually being able to communicate with each other in real time if we can in some of these situations, whether you're in the city situation or a county situation. And Supervisor Cerna's point, this identifying the source of the trash and then also enforcing on the source. I mean, if it was any other pollutant, right? If there was somebody who was dumping, chemicals on the ground and it leaked and it seeped through to somebody else's property, and we traced that pollutant down to a source, we would go after the source. But I don't know right now if we do that with trash or not. Maybe we do, but if it goes on to the source of the trash, if I'm going and contracting with somebody to go dump my trash, and then I get a bill because they found my trash in some gully, then I want to know, I'm going to report that business person because I'm getting blamed for that. So to me, I think we should be thinking about how can we get some authority on that, whether it's through the civil procedure city side, and that'll help us go after all those scrupulous business owners too, who are saying, hey, I'll pick up your trash for cheap. And next thing you know, they're dumping it, in the neighbor's, vacant property or whatnot. So I'd like to figure out how we move forward in that. But Madam Chair, I think this is a great conversation. It's good to a very productive trash talk. Not for the sake of trash talk.
And good points about, it seems like we're picking up garbage, but we're not getting to the heart of the problem, and I'm not quite sure how to do that. So we need to continue exploring it. Director Carr.
Thank you. I think my colleagues have a good point on the enforcement. And here's the issue that I'm running into. I purchased 5 cameras and put them in spots where there's a lot of history of illegal dumping. And the cameras have license plate readers, and they're connected to the police department. So we can see the vehicle that's there. But if we can't identify the individual, then we have a hard time getting to an enforcement action. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because if I drive across the Golden Gate Bridge, it doesn't matter who's in the vehicle, they charge me. And it seemed like we would have the same thing in this context, but we don't. So I think those legislative changes that need to be made would be very helpful for us, and to be able to enforce some dumping that we know is going on, and we know the vehicle is doing it too.
I do. Good thought. Yes, Director Natoli.
Yeah, just real quickly, I just, back to the point earlier about the program, I appreciate Doug pointing out that we still have the, report the illegal dumper program. I guess I would suggest, at least in an incorporated area, that we identified hotspots. Code enforcement had done that initially. Most of those hotspots haven't changed. I guess one way to do a field check would be to see if signs that were placed, if they had the locations, and/or to go check those hotspots and see what, I'm sure that over time, because it's been several years since we instituted that program, that either with just wear and tear or natural attrition, that a lot of those signs have gone away and haven't been replaced. And nothing else, it's visible to the general public that there is a program that's active. And the other thing, I just wanted to say that when I do the calculation, maybe one other, bit of minutia here, but if I did the math right, it was 46.5 million pounds of illegally dumped waste that we picked up in 2017. That's a heck of a lot of garbage. And I just, and I think that, you can take it down to tons or truckloads or whatever, but I think it emphasizes everything that's been said here, and certainly your staff. And I think it was a productive discussion today, and I'd like to see us cut in that number in a way that doesn't necessarily require we keep picking up that amount of pounds of garbage every year. Thanks.
And they keep bringing it back. That's what the feedback I'm
Where that
getting
came from. Yeah.
from constituents is they just keep bringing it. It just keeps coming.
Madam Chair, I know as this is a receive and file item, but I think, at least if on the low-hanging fruit, if SWA could take the lead on a coupon program to increase our utilization as we trying to figure out how do we look at crack the bigger nut, maybe we can get this chickpea off the table, but figure out how to, at least moving forward, we can get some progress on this.
Are you done with your presentation, Chris?
I have some highlights on the last slide.
Okay, and I think we just kind of took it and ran with it.
I'm done with my presentation, but as of October 4th, when we held our trash summit, we have some of the highlights of the conversations we had with the attendees. We're currently working on new contracts with the probation department. Probation has a work crew. For example, like when you go down the roadside, you see people collecting litter. That's an example of the probation program. And then I've engaged the local conservation corps to collect bulky items that are illegally dumped. The city's actually doing a neighborhood cleanup, as I previously mentioned. The first one's going to be in March. There was a lot of discussions about abandoned vehicles, whether it be small cars to trucks to recreational vehicles with the group. Water resources, there's a lot of, you might be familiar with the Sacramento Clean Water Coalition, or very similar to that. They have federal Clean Water Act reduction guidelines. I think 2030 is when it has to be almost zero for a certain size of litter going down the drain. And they're in the process currently of gathering the data and then presenting that to the regulatory authorities and saying, here's what we're anticipating we're going to have to do, or here's what we currently do, so we will be in compliance. So that was the conversation with a lot of the water resources side of things. Saw a few pictures of people camping out in the culverts for a lot of the drainage systems that are in the area. 311 was at the county's 311, and their technology analyst, and they have a lot of developments that they're working on, like cloud-based servers, as well as getting information out to the field, as well as the field being able to return information, for example, like a service request for collecting illegally dumped, or even a service request for scheduling an appointment. The appointments, though, at least on the county level, are scheduled through the Cubs customer service aspect of it, or you can do those online. Homeless encampment debris was a large thing that the city has a impact team. It's very similar to the HOT team for the sheriff's department, homeless outreach team. They partner a lot with the Caltrans and the Union Pacific Railroad to try and make sure they move the encampment off-site, as well as having the available resources to remove the debris after the people have moved on was something that was expressed. Multifamily outreach for bulk item. Director Gira mentioned about free dump coupon. The SWA is interested in taking the lead on doing it for multifamily, but we can also engage the city and county representatives on what components they need to address if they're interested in pursuing that. And then we have a staff report in November for you, because we will probably be meeting shortly with that stakeholder group again.
Okay, so you are looking for direction in 4 ways, am I correct?
Almost, yeah, engage.
Increase access and awareness of free collection services in single-family properties, provide greater access, well, no.
Well, first I would say the coupon program for multifamily is something that the SWA has specific jurisdiction over, and we could sort of go and run with it, but we also need to have the county as a partner agency because they're the ones with the facilities.
Okay, and then
we're more than happy to tie that in with the other 2 entities that are, at least the city's expressed an interest using the North Area Transfer Station.
Okay, and work with city and county on developing standards for residential bulky waste and e-waste collection for common use disposal facilities. Direct SWA staff to engage with the city and county staff to pursue and implement SWA-funded free dump coupons. Direct SWA staff to engage city and county staff regarding greater central admin, and to oversee the coordination of the program resources, data capture and promotion for illegal dumping and community cleanup activities. And we're going to continue the summit meetings, which are all part of this, and hopefully more of us will be able to attend the summit, and we'll get more entities engaged.
Yes.
Any other comments from Director Getter? Oh,
I move the staff recommendation.
okay, we have a motion by Director Carr. Do we have a second?
I was going to second with only one suggestion, is on bullet point 4 to add the term enforcement with a comma and then add it somewhere in between there.
Oh,
Say that again.
So that we put enforcement in bullet number 4. It's the coordination of county and staff regarding the administration and overseeing, but we also look at enforcement.
yeah, good idea.
Just ask,
Director Natoli.
yeah, it goes to discussion that came up at the summit. It's not part of the direction. I don't think it's necessarily embodied in what we're being asked to take action on here on the motion, but the portion about, litter, it may not be this pile of debris, but it's strewn in the ditches, and there's a tire here, a tire there, there's a bucket here, there's, prunings and, then stuff that falls off trucks, people throw out their windows and so forth. And just having a probation crew and or a sheriff's work crew that gets assigned, by the time they get out there, and particularly go to some of the more distant portions of the county, north, south, east, or west, you don't get a whole lot of time out there in the field doing it. You got a setup out there for safety, obviously, and so forth. So I guess I'd like to, at some juncture, have some discussion about that, because if we think that that's getting the job done, I would defy anybody to take a ride with me, and I'll show you where, the crews could, by the time they got done cleaning it, they'd have to be circling back again. So it's like, I don't think the adequacy of that piece of it, you do the bulky waste, you're responsive, but you have to combine it certainly in the county with doing the residential pickup, and I know your crews have to allocate time. And then you have probation crews, I guess, that go out sporadically, but when you got hundreds and hundreds of miles of roadways and byways and so forth, I just got to believe that, you know, we're just making a little dent in all of that. So I think having that discussion, if we could incorporate that into at least, you know, maybe that's part of the summit versus direction to you directly today. I just wanted to make that point, though, because to me, it's kind of a piece that's fallen through the cracks here.
Since we're sort of ready to go with some of these, would the board like to allocate any of the funding they set aside at the previous meeting to initiate these?
Well, are you going to have a conversation with the city and county and then report back
Yeah.
to us?
You need to report
Let's
back
do that.
before we say we're going to put some money at it.
But I
we
think
put
you
down
could
as
say,
an-
well, we're willing to reimburse us if the coupons use it somewhere. That sometimes goes a long way.
But this action here is only directing staff so they can come back with
Correct.
more fleshed
Yeah.
out.
It hasn't been noticed appropriately to do that.
Correct.
Yeah, and also, I mean, part of our discussion over the last several months was, can we find a way regionally to work together with multiple agencies to attack this problem? So it's not just a city and county. And so the summit does, I mean, there is some progress that can hopefully be achieved through the summit process. I know it's not part of this direction, immediate direction, but it kind of is if we're going to incorporate a program that's looking at how we're going to tackle
Right.
solid waste. And
And can I just ask, Mr.
Yes.
Chair, one other thing, because your comment just made me think of this, is that, you know, we're talking about, you know, two of the two biggest jurisdictions, but, you know, you still have 5 others in this county, actually 6 others, 6 other cities, and it would seem to me that efforts that we collectively make, and certainly the 2 biggest jurisdictions geographically and population-wise, but, you know, I assume they have similar issues, maybe not to the scale or magnitude, because it may be relative to population and to other demographics and whatever, but I think we need to engage those folks. Again, they may not be a part of SWA, but if we're going to go after this county-wide, certainly we as supervisors represent the entirety of the county, and, you know, obviously the city of Sacramento butts some of those other neighboring jurisdictions as well. I think that we need to, you know, do some outreach in that regard, and not to, you know, try to get our wings spread too far. But if we ignore that, then that's because you can, you know, I think about the rural South County. You could have, you know, residents in Gulf that, you know, decide that, you know, the country is just 2 miles out there, and I'll, you know, dump there. So working with law enforcement jurisdictions, but certainly with folks that, you know, either have franchise haulers that, you know, do their collection, and how they deal with their own city public works staff, I don't know. But again, that's relative, because I think about the exposure we have in, you know, proximity to these other jurisdictions, and, you know, we can find ourselves kind of working against ourselves a bit if we aren't at least engaging with those folks as well. So again, I wouldn't expect that would happen over the next few weeks, but I think that needs to be part of the overall strategy, is that, you know, recognize they may not be a part of SWA, but we're going to bring some resources and continue to bring resources to the table, that we want to at least talk with them about what they're doing, what their problems are, and how we can, again, work together, to your point. So, thanks.
yes, okay, so we have a motion by Director Carr and a second by Director Guerra.
And just for
please vote.
the record, I accept the friendly amendment to include enforcement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please vote. And thank you very much. Very great report, and thanks for all your work on that.
I want to thank everybody, and thank you for taking the time to listen to me.
Okay, next item is comments from the public, and I do not have any comment cards, and I do not see anyone raising their hand frantically. Oh, we have one person? Okay, would you like to approach the podium? And then you can state your name for the record. And our clerk will give you a form to fill out after you speak. You can turn it in to our clerk.
Hi. Hello. My first time doing this, so this is going to be interesting. I was invited by, I think, Alejandro from your department. So,
Please state your name for the
my name
record.
is Mark Robinson.
Okay.
I'm a homeowner here in Sacramento, District 6.
Hi, Mark.
How you doing? I came here just to bring up the attention, because it's something that I've come aware of. But I thought, being that some of the things that was brought up today, I could also might want to chime in, because it's something that I didn't hear much of, and I have kind of a background in, and just hoping it's something that's going to be implemented. So I'll touch on that real briefly, just to get it out of the way. You said about $50,000 is what you're allocating toward education, marketing, awareness?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that's one thing it sounds like I see a lot of is kind of a construction mentality, how we go about doing the job versus how we go about educating why we're doing the job. And I think that's something I kind of reflect back in the 80s when we had Woodsy the Owl, give a hoot, don't pollute. I haven't seen anything like that in a long time. And I think some kind of dollars being allocated to some program like that, especially with our younger generation, children, the millennials, I think they need to take more of the, what did you say, was it the pride of what?
Pride of place.
Pride of place, thank you, I need to remember that. So I think I'd like to see some heavy marketing dollars and education dollars focused versus, the construction side or the management of that. So that's neither here nor there. So the reason what I came for was kind of something I've noticed, and I know it's something that it ties in interestingly with both the homeless situation and also our current recycling program, and also our CRV program, which is over 20 years old. I think it was implemented in '86, so I was very young at that time, but I do remember when that came to fruition. One of the things I'm seeing in my area in particular, and I know Campus Commons, Sierra Oaks, and I'm sure there's other districts that you all manage are being highly impacted by this, is the culmination of the homeless. And what I'm starting to see is like a little bit of connection. What it comes down to is the homeowner demographic in those certain regions, and I think a little bit of a behavior that goes along with that demographic. In addition to that, then the recycling program and the 2-week duration that we have, and also the container sizes that are provided and marketed to the consumer, and even the costs that are even built into that. So I could get into a lot of detail here, but I know my time is limited. So just to summarize, what you have going on is a demographic of mostly customers, what you could call them customers, homeowners that are own homes around, let's say $500,000 to about $2-point-something million homes, especially the ones that are along the Parkway. You have a demographic that's largely, I would say, 40 to 80 years of age. A lot of them are retirees. A lot of them have very wealthy incomes. And the requirement upon them, or I should say maybe the desire upon them to actually recycle cans and bottles is kind of really not a priority in their world. They're more likely just to go hang out at Starbucks. So those cans and bottles are now ending up in those large recycling bins. And because of the 2-week duration, those bins now are filling up really well with a lot of CRV product. CRV now, in my opinion, is turning into a subsidy for the homeless population. And they've now zeroed in on these certain locations and said, hey, wait a second, we have a very large hoard taking place here because the homeowners here do not see a need to recycle cans and bottles like we used to when I grew up. So now that has created a hotspot, and that community the homeless community has kind of figured out, hey, these are the places to be because I can have a 2-week window to go out and get a lot of cans and bottles, especially every Thursday. Trust me, I hear them every morning when those Thursdays come around in my area. And we have a resulting that population growth. In addition to that is also the mess and crime that's a byproduct of them coming in there. We have neighbors now that are having their homes broken into, items stolen from their cars, from their yards. And a lot of these things are being used as a form of living along the Parkway.
If you could wrap up your comments.
So anyways, I think there needs to be some address on the recycling program. The CRV program, I think, really needs to be analyzed because I think it's dated. And I think we also need to look at some changes in our container sizes and also the frequency on a recycling program, or just a revision of the recycling program as a whole. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Mark, thank you for coming in. I think I see our solid waste staff, back here as well, and we can definitely chat with you, at least on the city side, on some of your concerns and ideas and how we can address that issue. But, I represent Sierra Oaks and Campus Commons, but I'll tell you that the scavenging through garbage cans, I think, is everywhere from Talek Village, Tahoe Park, Arden Arcade.
It's statewide. Really.
Meadowview. Yeah. So
Many times in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
You know
in
what I'm talking
Citrus
about.
Heights.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming up here.
Thank you for hearing me.
talking.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? With that, I believe we're adjourned.